Hello everyone. Let me just get down into this seat here. Oh, there we go. Let me just get to the chats to, let's see here. Oh, I don't need to use the internet. Come on. Channel me.
5, 4,
Yeah, ads. Okay, here we go. So we have Ivan. Hello, Ivan. Hello, Brian. Hello, Tyler. Hello, Glenn. Kobe. Daniel. Pacific. Kevin. Rena. Christian. Doc. Emma, hello everybody. John. Alright, so I know there was a bit of confusion because when I started the stream, for a lot of people it told them the stream started an hour ago from this point. Now what's really weird is, so the time to have afternoon tea is traditionally around 4 or 5 p.m. I always do it at 4 p.m. for my tea times. So right now it is 4:02 p.m. I scheduled the stream for 4 o'clock p.m., but for some reason it reverted the stream to 3 p.m., which I think has something to do with maybe like YouTube headquarters not being in the same time zone as I am. So for them, 4 p.m. is still 3 p.m. So I'm not really sure, but it was a really strange glitch because when I tried to correct it, it would not let me save. It thought I didn't do any corrections when I tried to put 4 p.m. It didn't save. So that's really weird. I didn't know until people were already in the chat and they were like, it says waiting for Alex or something like that. And I was like, why does it say that? It should be 4 p.m. So yeah, it was kind of really weird. It might have something to do with the time zone changes because especially since I heard that the clocks switched back, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday or something like that. So yeah, it is really weird. But yes, I did change time, Ozzy. Yeah, I live in the Pacific time zone of the United States, so how is the weather today? It is nice. It is rainy. It is very, very... Yeah, it is very dark outside. It's almost nighttime. Because it's just... The rain clouds are so thick. So... Yeah, very dark outside. Some of you might be wondering, what am I eating for today? Nothing. I don't have anything. I didn't make Scottish shortbread like I was supposed to because I made... The other day when I had time to bake, I made pumpkin bread instead. And the pumpkin bread doesn't last as long as the shortbread because the shortbread gets cut into little tiny pieces. So, yeah, so I don't have anything for today. So it'll just be tea. What I need to get is I need to order more of those McVitie's, the chocolate-covered biscuits. I stopped ordering them back in fall because we still had warm weather, early fall. We're in fall right now, but early fall I had stopped ordering them because we still had warm weather, and every time they arrived, the chocolate had all melted and they were all completely glued together. And no matter what I tried, separating them while they were warm and then refrigerating them later, it didn't work. They were just breaking apart. So, they were soaked with chocolate and they can't be separated. So, but now that we have cold weather, I don't think they'll be melting together anymore. So, I'm going to try to order them again So that way, in times like today, where I have absolutely nothing to have with my tea, I'll still have at least some McVitie's. So we'll see how that goes. Pacific CY says, I think YouTube headquarters is in the PST area. Well, then, yeah, then I have no idea what happened, because I specifically selected 4, and without me knowing, it went and reverted back to 3, so I have no idea. Daniel says, hey, Alex, are there any Cunard ships that don't have Queen or the Ia at the end of the name? Like, currently, as far as I know, no. The only ships that currently exist under the Cunard name are all Queen ships. Let's see. Christian says, hey, Alex, was the Queen Mary's propeller made out of cast bronze, or if it was a different material they used? It's a little different. They used bronze magnesium, so... yeah, so what do they have a specific name for bronze magnesium. I can't remember. They have a little nickname that fuses the terms bronze and magnesium together. And they have a little term that they use, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. Hello, Ron. Hello, Mike. Hey, Jimmy. My day is going very, very well. Kobe says, I don't know if I'm sick or just the soup. I made gumbo and it tastes bland for some reason. Gumbo and it tastes bland? Jeez, yeah, I have no idea what... You might be sick, to be totally honest. Alright. So... dump out half. Okay. It's nice and rainy outside. I love the rain. I love the rainy weather we get up here. You know, I'm really disappointed that I don't have anything to have with my tea. I'm gonna just check my cupboards real quick because I really want something with my tea. I'll be right back. Hold on. Alright. I do have something. They're definitely were not served on the Queen Mary, that's for sure. But, I have these little Japanese... They're kind of like... If you guys are familiar with Japanese sweet treats, these are like Pocky, but they're not exactly Pocky. They're kind of like... a chocolate cookie tube, and the inside of the tube is filled with mint, and so it like mint, like a mint filling, kind of like the same texture as the filling they would put in an Oreo. So let's see. It wouldn't be proper to put it on a plate because that would just be odd. Here, I'll put it in this. This is normally a creamer, so... Oh, I forgot to fill the creamer with milk. Oh my gosh. So I can't use that right now. I gotta fill that with milk. I'll use the bigger creamer. I didn't even get myself napkins. I'm not even prepared for this tea. Alright, give me a moment, everyone. Now, usually fold one of these for my face, and the other one, I usually keep all the china clean, but I don't wash them every week because I don't use all of them, so they do get dusty after a while. I think I wash these about once every 3 to 4 weeks, just because I don't want dirt or dust to build up on them. So, I'm just making sure if there's any dust in this one large creamer that I've wiped it away. Alright. That's good. So this is normally a large creamer. I never use it. One, because I rarely have guests over, and even when I do, I only have another guest with me, so the small creamer does the trick. Go ahead and put that there. Alright. So, again, this is like a Japanese treat, but I think it'll work well for what I'm doing today. There. Arrange that nicely. I think you can't even see that. You guys can barely see the teapot. Probably blocks the view of the... Here. Try to set everything up so it looks nice. Alright. Set that aside and I'll clean that up later. Okay, so time to start brewing the tea. Alright, let's get to some comments. Hello, Monk. I'm doing well. How about you? Doc says, Alex, I wanted to ask, with your love of history, do you ever buy/wear vintage-style clothes? I can't wait to hear more narrated chapters soon. So, I would wear vintage clothes. Problem is, I'm very fat, and I cannot find any vintage clothes in my size. People back then were not whales, so I don't fit any vintage clothing. Not even if I let it out, like I had a tailor let it out, so it wouldn't work. So I don't wear any vintage clothing at all. But I've tried looking for them. Can't find them. So let's go ahead and pour this completely out. Go. So, I'm always concerned with conserving water, even though I live in a very rainy area. So if anybody wonders what I do with all the extra water that I just use for heating up the teapot and teacup, I actually use it at the end of the streams to rinse out the teapot and teacup. I rinse them out because I don't always have time right after tea time to wash all the dishes, and I don't want them to sit with all the tea in them because I'm afraid it'll kind of stain them a little bit. So, so what I do is after the stream, I rinse them out with the extra water that I used earlier, and then what I do is I wait till I have a more convenient time to wash the dishes and get them properly cleaned and put away. So that's what I do. Alright, so 4:21 or 4:22 should be the time that I can... There we go. Alright, back to the comments. Pacific says, you may want to get normal McVitie's without the chocolate. So I considered it once during the summer when all my McVitie's were melting upon arrival. I considered it, and they are cheaper. But I don't know. They're kind of, I've had them. To me, they're kind of bland. So I like to have the chocolate on them. It gives it a little bit of sweetness, and you know, I don't know. I'm too American for having the plain McVitie's. Hello, Mike. Ron says, Alex, will you be attending the reopening of the Queen Mary? I may not be there when the day it reopens. I live 1,000 miles north. Going down there is spending hundreds of dollars. So I do not have hundreds of dollars lying around. So if I do go there, it will be when I have saved up the money to go down. I had a window of time. So in early October, the idea all year was that the Queen Mary would reopen October 1st. And I had a narrow window of time where I could get down there very cheap and then come back up very cheap. And so that window of time has passed and the ship hasn't reopened yet. So now I don't know when I'll be able to go to the Queen Mary. I really don't, because it is very expensive for me to get down there. Again, I live 1,000 miles north. It's not like, you know, it's not like I can just hop on a plane or a train or something like that. You know, a train ride down there would be 36 hours long. And that's with a transfer as well. So, yeah, 36 hours of being on a train, I can't do that. And then a plane flight is, you know, almost as expensive as a train. Yeah, I can't. It's not that simple. So I wish I could be. I really want to be. There's stuff I need to film so I can bring you guys more video footage of the ship and make more videos about the ship. So, John says, nice. It's 40s/30s and rain. I know, I love the cold and I love the rain. You know, I grew up in Southern California where it very rarely rains and the seasons blend together year-round. Like, there's really hardly a difference between winter and summer in Southern California. It's hardly a difference. You know, you still sometimes get heat waves during winter in California, or Southern California, I should say. And everything looks the same, and, you know, I lived in the LA, Orange County area, so it was just concrete everywhere. You know, there was just no naturalness to anything. No native trees or anything, no forests. I hated living down there. And so I've always wanted to move up here where it's cold a lot of the time, where it's rainy a lot of the time, where there's tons of forests and rivers and patches of wilderness everywhere. I love it. I love it. And, you know, I love the cold weather. You know why I love the cold weather so much, too, is because I like to dress up when I leave the house. And, you know, I like wearing all kinds of coats or, like, you know, or blazers and things like that. And you can't do that in hot weather. It's just not comfortable. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really like the cold, is because I can dress up for it, and I can, I can look presentable when I leave the house. During the summer months, it's so hot. I go outside in like basketball shorts and like a t-shirt, and I don't like dressing like that. Yeah. So that's part of the reason why I like it so much up here. Okay, so the tea should be ready. I'll wait till it says 422, just in case, because I like my tea brewed just a little bit longer than usual. MS says, did Normandy roll as much as RMS Queen Mary? Yes, but the difference was that when Normandy rolled, she had what was called a snappy roll. It's a really complicated thing for me to describe why she rolled that way. It has something to do with, the weight distribution between the top part of the ship versus the bottom part of the ship. But basically, she had a snappy roll. So when she rolled, and she reached the peak of the roll, she would suddenly just whoop, right back to the top. That might sound okay, but when you're on the ship, it can be kind of disturbing when you're walking around, because you might suddenly go woo and then feel like you're bouncing. Or if it was very, very rough seas, the snappiness of the roll can actually cause items to lift off the tables and chairs. You can actually be thrown from your chair with a snappy roll. So because it's so snappy, it just and then you just get lifted out of your seat, that kind of thing. With Queen Mary, she had a very slow roll. So she would go to one side, and then she would hold there for a second, and then she'd slowly come back that way. So even though Queen Mary rolled a lot, she was a gentle roller, except for the really extreme angles that she might take sometimes, which could throw things off of tables and whatever. But nevertheless, there's a difference between a snappy roll and a slow roll, and Normandy was a snappy roll for sure. Let's go ahead and stir that. Okay. Dump out the teacup. Alright, so let's go ahead and some sugar. I use these little demi-toss spoons because they're small enough for the teacups. These teacups are so tiny that you really can't use a full-size spoon. It just looks weird. Okay. Give that a stir. The etiquette is to stir back and forth, not around and around. They say that it mixes your sugar and cream into the tea faster and quieter. That's what they say. Alright, so let's get back to the comments because I don't get through these fast enough. NCC says Saga Fjord wasn't an IA or Queen. Is Saga Fjord a current ship with Cunard? I wasn't aware they had any other ships besides Queen ships currently. But I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert on ocean liners. People ask me questions, and I answer them to the best of my ability. Sometimes I'm wrong. Jimmy Lance says, hey Alex, do you like the RMS Lusitania more, or the HMHS Britannic? And hello, Ashley, if you see this. I like the RMS Lusitania more. HMHS Britannic, honestly, would be on the very bottom of all my lists. It's a hospital ship. I don't think hospital ships are very nice looking. the tops of my lists usually are the prettiest ships. So I would say Lusitania. Happy birthday, Octarian. Daniel's asking instead, he wants to know about the ships back then that didn't have the Queen or IA at the end of the name. Then I couldn't tell you. I'm really not that well versed in ocean liner history. I couldn't tell you. Sylvia Reed says, morning all, morning Alex, love the rain as well. Thank you. Yeah, I love the rain. Sylvia Reed says, is it your birthday? And it's not my birthday. It's Octarian's birthday today. Everybody's saying happy birthday to him. Christian says, have you seen the movie Titanic 666 that came out this year, forsaking the original Titanic, then Titanic 2? Now they made Titanic 3 for the movie. I do not watch movies that I know are not going to be good. I already have very little time in my schedule every day, so I will not watch a movie if it is not a really, really good movie. And so it's funny that way, because I know people who love watching bad movies just because they like to make fun of it and whatever, but honestly, to me, it's a waste of my time, so I don't watch bad movies. Let's see. NCC says in the 70s there was Cunard Adventurer and Cunard Princess. Yeah, I had a friend that was on a Cunard Princess. Let's see. Hello, George. Moonzer says, hey, Alex, I'm 11. I have a question. Did you know that the RMS Queen Elizabeth had a pool on the stern, aka the back? Yes. In the final years of Queen Elizabeth's voyages, they did install a Lido deck on the ship because the Queen Elizabeth was being used for cruising purposes. So they tried to do that with Queen Mary, but she really wasn't good for cruising. But Queen Elizabeth was a little bit newer, and so they were able to use her more effectively on cruises. But one thing that they really wanted to add to her was a Lido deck, so people could swim in the pool and be outside when they're in the warm weather. So yeah, I did know Queen Elizabeth had a pool. Rena says, is that Pocky? No, but it's like Pocky. So it's basically a chocolate cookie tube, and on the inside is like a mint filling. So it's like Pocky, but just inside out. So like, you know how Pocky is dipped in something? Well, this is like the opposite. It's like they filled it in, you know? So it's really good though. It's minty and chocolatey. It's really good. I wouldn't want to mix it with my Earl Grey tea, but I'll have it, you know, I'll go back and forth and sip tea and have some. So let me actually... Octarian says, hey, Alex, if Titanic sank during... I just realized you guys probably can't even see that I'm wearing a blazer and a sweater at the same time because it's so dark. I'm wearing like this really dark maroon sweater and then the blazer over it. And then, of course, it blends in with the black leather of my seat, so it just looks like I'm a floating head. I just realized that right now. Okay, Octarian says, hey, Alex, if Titanic sank during a rainy night, then how would it affect the sinking? Well, unless there was literally a heavy wind or a major storm, like the seas were really like going crazy, then other than that, rain really wouldn't have affected the sinking, in my opinion. But then again, my opinion isn't really worth much. I don't know much about Titanic, so... But I wouldn't imagine that rain would have any effect on the sinking. Rayanne says, it has been difficult 2 days. Timing of this tea time is perfect. These live streams are always relaxing. Well, thank you, Rayanne. I'm sorry to hear that you've had some difficult time. To be honest, you know, I have too. So having these tea times actually really helps me to unwind and just relax, you know. I really do love doing these live streams. Like, you know, it allows me the ability to just talk to people, you know. It allows me the ability to socialize. Maverick says, hey, Alex, yesterday I went to D.C. I purchased a 1930s three-piece brown suit with a 1930s houndstooth cap and a 1930s tie, which I'm currently wearing during this live stream. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I do envy the different outfits and things that you have. Ozzy says it's 5.17 here in Arizona. What's 5.17? The temperature? Spirit says, hello, Alex. Nice to be here. Also, Norfolk and Western coaches for my layout has arrived. Oh, nice. What is your layout again? Is it steam or is it like a diesel layout? Tyler says, I have nicely said it before. You're not fat, just pleasantly plump. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I have come to terms with being overweight. I really have. I don't mind calling myself fat. I don't think it's any secret that I am, to be totally honest. I mean, it's not like I walk onto the live stream, you know, every day and go, like, there's no way I'm that big. Like, I know I'm big. Especially since I can't find any vintage clothing in my size. That kind of tells me, you know. Oh boy, the chat moved and now I can't see. Alright, where was... Okay, here we go. Fallon Will says, Alex, where can I get model paint? If you live in the United States, there's a lot of places called Hobby... Oh, gosh, why am I'm so bad at remembering things. I know, crazy, right? Because I do so much history. Hobby Lobby. There's places all around the United States called Hobby Lobby. You can stop in one of those and buy paints. Or you can just check online. They have them on Amazon. You can get Mr. Color or Timea paints online. So you can do that on eBay or Amazon. But yeah, if there's a Hobby Lobby near you, they have a lot of model paints and you can choose which ones you want. Hello, Modcat. Ron says, Alex, completely understood, but hope you will make it soon. Planning a January visit. Yeah, I would love to go. George the Paleo Guy says, Alex, what is your opinion on the Normandy? I think a lot of people have misunderstood my opinion on the Normandy. I think a lot of people think that I probably, like, just utterly hate the Normandy because I made a video called Why I Hate the Normandy. But it's not what it seems. I don't hate the Normandy. I do think the Normandy is beautiful in its own way. I once compared it to, like, the Vatican, for instance. The Vatican is very beautiful, and you go inside and it's, like, nice looking, and, you know, there's a lot of artistry there. And Normandy is the same way. Lots of artistry went into the ship. But, just like the Vatican, I would not want to sleep in it, because it is just very large, cold, extremely formal. More formal than the Queen Mary was. The Queen Mary was still very formal, you guys. By all means, the ship was extremely formal. But Normandy was just a touch more formal. And so, yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to sleep on the Normandy. I wouldn't want to take a voyage on the Normandy. It's not my thing. You know, I like it from a distance, just like the Vatican, just like, you know, any large palace or old building of that kind, you know, the kind made of, like, stone and metal and all kinds of stuff like that. I like it from a distance. I like looking at it, but I wouldn't want to stay there, you know. Oh, the chat moved again. Sorry, the chat keeps moving whenever I'm not looking at it, and then I can't find where I was. Okay. Pacific says, have you ever experienced a power outage due to intense rain? That happened to me fairly recently. Yes, I've experienced power outages due to intense rain in California, but since I've lived up here for, 2 years, we haven't had any power outages at all, despite the crazy storm. I heard that there are power outages in Portland right now, which is, nearby, but no power outages here. Fallon Will says, Alex, why did Queen Mary roll? You can learn the details of that on my video called The Rolling Mary. I don't want to explain it here because it's a really long explanation, but you'll like the video, The Rolling Mary. Hello, Spyro. Doc says, I'm so curious about day in life of passengers. Did people ever bring their dogs or transport their horses? They didn't transport horses, but yes, they did bring their dogs and cats quite often. Queen Mary had a dog kennel, which was up on the sports deck of the ship. And so it was a very nice kennel. And there was even a place where people could visit their dogs and then take them on a short little potty break out on the deck. They had a fire hydrant for the American dogs and a London lamppost for the British dogs. So, and that's still a tradition to this day. Cunard ships to this day have a fire hydrant and a lamppost for the dogs. So, and then there was one person who brought her egg-laying chickens on board. So I know that they've held chickens, and the ship also held thousands of goldfish. They were being transported for whatever reason. There were, I think, 40,000 goldfish. So no, I got that wrong. Not for that was because the same chapter mentions gold bullion, but there was a lot of goldfish, let's put it that way. A lot of goldfish that was being transported. So the ship has transported all kinds of animals, but I don't imagine they would have had a place to transport the horses. I could be wrong, though. Fallon says, Alex, what's the tea of the day? Today is Earl Grey tea. Hello, Derek. Hello, Pierre. Always good to spend time with you. Thank you. Spyro says, gotta love the rain, huh? Oh, I love the rain. Love it so much. I'll even take walks in the rain. So I like to go to like different places like state parks or whatever, or river trails and stuff like that, and I'll just take walks in the rain. Carl says, Queen Mary got a ship named after her. Queen Elizabeth, husband of George VI, got a ship named after her. Queen Elizabeth II got one. Time for Queen Camilla? Maybe. Fallon says, I hope in the next Titanic Honor and Glory update they add the bow to walk on. Yeah, that'd be nice. Daniel says, hey, Alex, I decided to make my first wooden ocean liner in my wood shop class. It's a fictionary Cunard ship, RMS Mauretania. Still needs some work, though. Interesting. Alright, I'm going to skip through some of these. Stuff that may not need to be read out loud, because I need to get caught up. Carl says, are you familiar with the vintage revival cruises that are going on with RMS Queen Mary 2 with Alex Medham and his orchestra, Dandy Wellington? I've heard of I've heard of those. They do special voyages and stuff. I was seeing a video that Dandy Wellington was doing and stuff like that. I thought it's really cool. Yeah, I thought it was really neat. That's an interesting dream, Christian. Moonzer, thank you so much for the donation. Alex, my dad's friend Steve was on the RMS Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. Is that cool? Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, I wish, there's a lot of people who, have been aboard the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, and, they have some pretty cool stories to tell of their voyages. Although, there was one person who told me about their third-class voyage on the Queen Mary, and they described so much how they hated it. I was like, well, it's interesting to get both sides of the story. Chris, yes, that is true. You could use the holodeck. Carl says, you're not fat, you're a gentleman of respectable presence, Alex, my dear fellow. Well, thank you. There's a whole lot of presents to be had, so... Fallon Will says, Alex, could Jack fit on the raft with Rose? So, Mythbusters did an episode where they wanted to see if they could fit. And, long story short, yes. Technically, by surface area, Jack could fit. However, what they did mention, and what a lot of people who quote the Mythbusters forget, is that... while there was technically space for Jack, there was the door was not evenly floating. One side of the wooden door was thicker than the other, and so therefore it was leaning like this. And so when Jack tried to get on, or Jack and Rose tried to get on, it would have just flipped over because it was not evenly buoyant. And that you could very clearly see that in the movie, that it was not evenly buoyant. If he had tried to lay on there, he would have still been in the water. So yeah, and Mythbusters said just as much. They literally said by surface area he could fit, but the raft would have just flipped right over because it was not evenly sitting. So yeah, could he have fit on there? Yes. Would he have still been in the water? Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Modcat says he almost got hit by a tornado. Jeez, yeah, tornadoes are my worst nightmare when it comes to weather. Spyro says, just here, there was a power outage that knocked out power from Arlington, Washington, all the way to Marysville, Washington. No power for over 12 hours just due to severe rain and 8-mile-an-hour winds. Wow. Yeah, up here there's been a lot of, not me, but up here there's been a lot of power outages in areas because the trees are falling over, which happens every winter, the root system of these trees are very shallow, so when the ground gets muddy, they have a tendency to just fall over, especially when there's wind. And we've been having 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts. So, Hello, Henry. I'm doing great. Carl says, Alex, have you considered becoming a guest lecturer on RMS Queen Mary 2? Yes, we talked about it in the last live stream. There is several problems with it. One, I will not have the time to be a guest lecturer on the ship. I have too many things I want to do on the ship, and I don't have time for it. But the other thing, too, is it doesn't really benefit me in any way. It doesn't give me any kind of, like, discount on staying on the ship or anything. It's really just a person volunteering to be on the stage. And there's not really anything I think that I could really do that people would take much of an interest in. It'd be very complex. You know, I'd want to talk about the Queen Mary and show photos, but those photos are not owned by me. I'd have to track down every person who owns those photos and ask them permission to show them on the ship. And I just, the logistics of it is just a nightmare. So I wouldn't want to do that. Spire says, I'd much rather be walking in the rain than walk in the blistering heat. Yeah, I agree. Chris says, you're drinking Captain Picard's favorite tea, Earl Grey. Oh, I didn't know that was his favorite tea. Well, that's cool. Rainy Sky says, were Lusitania, Mauretania, Aquitania meant to be sister ships like the Olympic class? Lusitania and Mauretania were meant to be sister ships. Aquitania was what we would call a companion liner. So it's in between being a sister ship and being a running mate. It's just right in between. So it was meant to be a companion liner. Just the same as RMS Queen Elizabeth was a companion liner to RMS Queen Mary. Fallon says, Alex, should I try Earl Grey tea, yes or no? Yeah, I'd say try it. It's really good. You have to brew it the correct way, though. All teas will taste terrible if you don't brew them correctly. So, yeah. Daniel says, hey, Alex, do you think Thanksgiving is always overlooked by Christmas? Because I am at Home Depot, and already there are Christmas decorations and not one Thanksgiving decoration. I mean, yeah, Thanksgiving is always overshadowed by Halloween and Christmas. Christmas mostly. But, I love Thanksgiving. I look forward to Thanksgiving every year because my family comes together and, we eat this huge feast. Everybody cooks something, So when I was growing up, my dad always made the turkey. But several years ago, he had, retired from turkey cooking. And so now I cook the turkey every year. So I don't like cooking the turkey. But I know how to cook it. So, that's why I'm the one designated to cook it. So, yeah. It is interesting. Thanksgiving, for me, is just a really nice holiday, It's just represents just a good time with my family and stuff. So, yeah. Fallon, that's interesting. About the M&M thing. Derek says, hey, Alex, great news. A fixings RMS Queen Mary, her add back, her old engine room, and her lifeboat fixings it. I'm not sure if you're saying that it's been announced that they're going to add back her old engine room and her lifeboats. Because I haven't heard that announcement. But, rumors spread. Lots of people create rumors about what's happening on the Queen Mary right now. And then it spreads and everybody has all these ideas. Maverick, I agree. Yeah. A TV show or movie about that would be really good. Sparrow says, why would someone hate third class on the Queen Mary? especially since the third class of RMS Queen Mary was so much nicer than it had been on previous ocean liners. Because by the 1960s, third class on Queen Mary was far behind third class on ships like SS France, or even on ships like the SS United States. So third class accommodations had gotten much better on other ships. That being said, after the war, Cunard did make improvements to third class. Third class before the war never had access to like a swimming pool. Well, after the war, they gave them certain access to the first class swimming pool during certain times of the day. As well as sometime in the 50s, they gave third class access to the observation bar on promenade deck. That's something not a lot of people know. The observation bar was, for the longest time, always a first class only area. But by the 50s, they had given it access to third class. So third class could just go up the third class staircase and then take another staircase and come up the promenade deck, and then they could go to the observation bar. So they had given them a lot of stuff. I mean, that's only like a fraction of the things they did for third class. They improved third class a lot. So over the years. So it was getting better and better. But nevertheless, by the 1960s, not having your own lavatory connected to your stateroom was not a major selling point, even for third class. And Queen Mary did not have any third class staterooms that had an attached lavatory. So they had to go and use the community lavatory. And that just wasn't, people did not like that. Chris, yeah, people always call Titanic a cruise ship. John C. says, have you ever thought about coming up with your own ocean liner? Yeah, but I'm not creative enough to design an ocean liner that I think would look nice. I've tried. Kobe says, Alex, every week or two I try to convince my parents that Cunard voyages aren't too expensive for what they offer. Is there anything I could tell them to make them might be interested in a crossing? I really don't know. I don't know what your parents are into. Because some people don't... Some people, Cunard voyages don't offer enough for them. Some people like those cruise ships that have the water parks on the top deck, So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm sure you're already saying everything I would say. Ron says, do you think Cunard will ever stop using Queen and say do Aquitania 2 or another Mauretania 3? Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's only so many Queens they could make. Shiver says, hi, Alex. Do you know if they've given an opening date for Queen Mary? No, they have not given an opening date. They're trying to get her reopened by the end of the year. Mike says, have you ever tried zebra cakes? They are awesome. Yes, I do like zebra cakes, for sure. Shiver says, Earl Grey is also a favorite tea of Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II. Yep. That's true. Carl asks, going down the dream route, have you ever dreamed you were on the Queen Mary or any other ocean liner? No. I don't have dreams, really. I used to when I was a kid. I used to have dreams in general. But I rarely have dreams now. And when I dream now... What do I dream? I certainly don't dream about any of my interests, that's for sure. It's never a dream about trains or ocean liners or anything. It's just dreams about daily life. Yeah. So, yeah, but I haven't had any dreams about ocean liners. Jimmy says, Alex, what's your favorite of the two? Oceanic or Queen Mary 2? Oh, that's a good question. Oceanic, I would have to say. Yeah. Spyro says, you know, come to think about it, I genuinely think RMS Queen Mary and RMS Queen Elizabeth are in fact true sister ships, simply because they're the same size. You know, I'm not going to argue with anyone who thinks that they're sister ships. There's a lot of talking points to say that they are sister ships. But then there's a lot of talking points that people would present to say that they're so different that they aren't considered sister ships. Which is exactly why I was talking to Steve, and I was like, what would we call them? And he goes, companion liners, you know? Because they are so close to being sister ships that they're almost sister ships. But they're not far enough away from each other to say that they are just running mates, you know? So, that's why he said, you know, they're companion liners. But yeah, I mean, they are so very similar, you know. Really, the argument that they're not sister ships is kind of only barely technically true. Daniel says, hey, Alex, how did pools on the back of the ocean liners, such as Normandy or Queen Elizabeth, didn't spill out during rough or even normal speed? I'm guessing you're saying that during rough weather. If there was rough weather, they drained the pools. And that goes for the pools inside the ship as well. So even Queen Mary, you know, they would drain the first class swimming pool if they had rough weather. Because the last thing you want is water sloshing around. So if there was rough weather, they would drain the pools to either half or fully empty. As for going normal speed, I'm not sure what you mean by that, because the ships accelerate very slowly. So it's not like they're like a car where they just go, vroom, you know, and take off, and then the water's sloshing everywhere. You know, ocean liners, they get up to speed gradually, and that gradual motion is not enough to make the water slosh around. So, yeah, so there really was no, but I mean, basically the rule of thumb is if the water is going sloshing like crazy, they will close the pool area, and then they will drain the pool either half or fully. And they may not reopen the pool till it's fully filled up again. So that's how it worked on the Queen Mary, and I imagine that's how it worked on Queen Elizabeth as well, because, you know, why change, you know, a good method? Oh, C's, I see now. Yeah, same answer. Spyro says, interesting. Fun fact, Alex, did you know that the bathrooms on board ships these days are actually called heads? And they have always been called heads. They can be called lavatories, but they're more commonly known as heads. I didn't know that. This is the first time I've ever heard someone call, you know, a toilet or lavatory on a ship a head. I know that on military ships they call them heads, but it seems very... It seems very not very genteel to use the term head on a luxury liner. Like, can you imagine being on the Queen Mary 2, and then the person walks up in their beautiful dress or their suit, and they go up to a steward and say, "Excuse me, sir, where can I find the lavatory?" And the steward's like, "Oh, the head's right over there." Like, can you imagine? Like, I don't think that they say head. It's the same reason, like, when I worked at Disneyland, we had a specific vocabulary that they asked us to do at the time. I think today they really don't care, but back then they cared a lot about how you say things. So, so someone was asking one time, they were in the park, and they said, where can I get wine, with a meal, And at the time, Disneyland did not serve alcohol. You had to go to the other park, California Adventure, which is across the way, to get any kind of alcohol with your meal. So, so I was kind of looking around, and my coworker was next to me, and he was just a very ordinary guy, right? And so he didn't know either. He was like, because he was new to the park, he didn't know if the park even had a restaurant that served alcohol. He goes and talks to the lead, and he's like, "Hey, Dustin, do we serve booze here?" And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I could not believe he literally just said, the person that was asking me about the wine, they just like looked at him too, like, wow, because they were like asking just to have a nice meal with some wine, and here he is, he's just, "Do we have booze here?" It was just like, it's just very, like, not Disney-like, So, I answered their question, just in case you're wondering. I told them they had to go to the other park or go to downtown Disney, but nevertheless, yeah, it's weird. So I don't imagine that you could be on a luxury liner, and then the people working on the liner would direct their rich and wealthy passengers to a head, That's kind of why I don't believe. But I know that on military ships they said head. That's for sure. Spyro asked, does RMS Queen Mary still have her double hull? Yes, she does have her double hull currently. And right now it is currently undergoing inspections. So far, so good. Nothing wrong with her double hull. So, but yeah, she still has her double hull. And it's still holding back the water just fine. Chris says, one of my friends, Ron, who was a Navy SEAL, whenever he needs to go to the bathroom, he says going to the head. Mm-hmm. Beluga Brody, gosh, I keep getting... I don't know if it's you asking this question every single time, but somebody asked me on every single live stream. This is the question, word for word. Have you ever seen Alex Boots' Cunard version of RMS Britannic? So take note, everybody. If you ask me this on Wednesday, I'm going to have the same exact answer. I do not know what that is. Emma Davis says, I have problems with dreaming about events of 9/11 in ways that disturb me. Oh, geez. Yeah, I've never had that before. Hold on, I got a text I have to answer. Okay, back to the comments. Daniel says, my friends say that model trains are boring, and although I do get very irritated, I kind of feel sorry because, to be honest, they are brainwashed with video games and electronics. I can understand how you feel. When I was a kid in the 1990s, it was still cool to have a model railroad. You know, even if you had like an uncle that had a model railroad or something, model railroads were still cool back then. But more and more, as video games became more accessible to more people, and they just became commonplace to have in your house, things like having a model railroad just were not interesting to people. And now today, 30 years later, you know, if someone like me has a model railroad, people go like, what, really? Like, isn't that like an old man thing? Because people these days don't have model railroads. And there's several reasons why. The chief among all the reasons is the expense. They are expensive. They take time to build. You know, they take skills that people just don't have anymore. So, like, literally, they take skills that people just don't normally have. Like, how many of you guys know how to solder electronics and cables and wires and capacitors and transformers and things? Like, how many people really know how to do that these days? Or how many people know carpentry skills just off the bat, you know? Or how to sculpt something out of plaster? You know, how many people know how to paint something? Or how to use the paints in the first place? It takes, so model railroading takes a lot of skills that average people just don't have anymore. These are skills that you could have gotten in high school back in, you know, before the 90s. Most high schools had these kinds of workshop classes that taught you everything about you know, basic electronic circuitry, carpentry, art. So you might have learned sculpting in art. You might have learned painting in art. So it takes a lot of skills that, you know, the average person today just doesn't have. And so it's much easier for people to just use a computer to do all of their gaming and stuff. And I don't hold it against people who do gaming, honestly. You know, maybe 10 years ago I would have looked at a gamer and been like, okay, you know, like I would have thought like, why don't you do something real, you know? But these days I don't judge gamers anymore because now it's just so commonplace to be a gamer. And to be honest, there's some interesting things that people have done with games since then. Like when I was a kid, games were just games, but now today you can do simulators. So like today you can run a steam locomotive on a simulator. Today you can explore Titanic on a simulator. You know, like there are things you can do now that you couldn't really do back then with gaming. So I no longer judge people who do gaming. And plus, gaming is kind of now a culture in its own. You know, people come together and become huge groups of friends over games. So now today, I'm not judgmental about people who do gaming. But it is disappointing that I can't have more friends who are into model railroading. I do have one friend, my friend Mateo. He might be watching right now. He is into model railroading. He does not currently have a layout of his own, but he is interested in them. And he lives here in Oregon, but he lives in southern Oregon. So it's not easy for him to come up and visit me or for me to go down and visit him. So, but you know, it would be nice. I would like to have more close friends who are into model railroading, and we can like hang out and build stuff, or, you know. I have thought about, like, it would be really cool for me to start a model railroad club, but not like like currently, like, there are model railroad clubs where, like, you pay like a fee and everybody shares duties, and then you run the railroad like it's a real railroad. You might even have like cards that have the schedule of where the train needs to be and that kind of thing. They run it like a real railroad, just miniature. So they have like all their stuff. They know where to drop off each car every day, like what industry the train needs to go to. I want to do something like that, but maybe not so intense. Maybe something that has less rules, so that way it's more appealing to more people, and it wouldn't just be a private club. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh, pay a big fee and get to, you know, do this. It might be more of like a, I don't know, like a walk in and play with trains kind of club. That would be more expensive to operate, I do think, because, you know, if people steal stuff off the model railroad, or people try to, like, you know, the logistics are difficult. Let me just put it that way. Spyro says, wait, am I still reading at the right? No, sorry, I'm not going to get to that question just yet. I'm still got other questions to get to first. Oh, wait, no, I can get to your question, because that's where I was. Okay, Spyro says, if the Queen Mary still has her double hull, if that's the case, why do people say her engine rooms are at serious risk of flooding? So, basically, there's a lot of misinformation in the media. And I do blame the media, because they're the ones that are trying to make their news articles more exciting, telling people that the Queen Mary is fine, but if she's neglected for God knows how many more years, who knows what'll happen. That's not as exciting as saying, if the Queen Mary doesn't get repaired now, she's gonna flood. You know, that is more exciting, and that's what they want to print, so that way you guys will read it. So, let's put it this way. Any ship that is neglected is at risk of flooding, eventually. But doesn't mean they're going to flood soon. Doesn't even mean that people know when it's going to flood. So, the Queen Mary, by previous operators, was being neglected. And the engineering surveyor who used to operate on the ship and inspect the ship, he used to say that if the ship was neglected for much longer, she would be at risk of flooding, which is true. It's a true statement. But again, it doesn't mean she will, and it doesn't mean she will soon. It just means that you keep neglecting something, eventually it'll rot away. That's a perfectly true statement. But again, the media makes it sound like it's going to happen like soon. So no, the engine rooms on the Queen Mary are not at risk of flooding soon. And especially right now, the ship has been undergoing serious repairs since February. And she's almost finished with a lot of those repairs. And when she reopens to the public, she will be a lot more safe than she was when she closed in June of 2020. So, the Queen Mary will be fine. She will be perfectly fine. Nobody should worry at all about the ship flooding, capsizing, you know, none of that. They did an inspection of her exterior hull last year. They had the report finished by November of last year. They did ultrasounds of the exterior of her hull to see how thick the plates were. All of them were an average of an inch thick, which is very good for a ship that's like almost 90 years old. That's very good. And then they are currently doing interior inspections of the double hull. They're going inside each of the compartments of the double hull and inspecting them. So far, so good. No issues of corrosion or anything. There's so many Queen Mary naysayers out there. People who just love to hear the Queen Mary. There are people who literally say, just scrap her, just burn her, somebody sink her. People that just want to see the ship destroyed for no reason other than just to laugh. And those people, I laugh at them because they're like, oh, I bet they're going to open up that double hull and they're going to see how rotten it is. And nope, they're opening up the double hull. They're checking it compartment by compartment. The ship is in nice, beautiful shape for her age. Like, she still has a very thick hull. She's very strong. The rivets are holding. You know, it's... The Queen Mary may not look all that well kept, you know, at first when you look at it. But when you really inspect the structure of the ship is in very, very good shape. So, yeah. So, no worries about that, you guys. This one. Don't worry, you guys, I'm reading your comments, but I may not have anything to respond to them, especially since a lot of these comments are not questions, they're just people telling me things. So I am reading them, but I don't need to read them out loud. I'm just trying to get through as many of these as possible. Mike says, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I feel the exact same way. In fact, people have said that I am a jack of all trades. But yeah, I tell people, I'm like, you know, I know a lot, or I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not necessarily a lot about a few things, you know? So I kind of just have a broad spectrum of knowledge, but never a master at any of those subjects. Fallon says, Alex, have they ever raised the shipwreck before? What shipwreck? Spire says, can you do like a model ship club, Alex? I'm not sure I'm interested in a model ship club. See you later, Daniel. And Monk as well. Spire says, Alex, I have a question. If I can get to, say, one of those 66-year lease and I was able to afford to restore the ship back to her original glory all the way down to her very engines and machinery, would... Where's the rest of your question? Yeah, I'm sorry, Spyro. You have to retype your question because I think you got cut off. I think only half the question is on here. Emma says, Queen Mary's lifeboats I think have been scrapped. Part-time explorer mentioned. Not all the lifeboats were scrapped, so they saved 2 that are still on the ship, 1 that is on the dock and will stay on the dock for people to walk around, and then they saved 5 more which have gone into Long Beach storage, and then the rest were scrapped. And not even scrapped. Scrapped isn't the right word. They were thrown away. They were not worth any scrap value because they were so corroded. They really couldn't be melted back down. So, especially because they were covered in lead paint, which would have required them to, you know, properly remove the lead, and they didn't want to do that. So they just threw them away. They cut them up and threw them away. But yeah, there are a total of 8 lifeboats that have been preserved for the future. Spyro says, if I'm not mistaken, the RMS Queen Mary's double hull goes all the way up to D deck. Yes, that is correct. The double hull does go all the way up to D deck. Fallon says, Alex, if the Titanic never sank, would it have ever had a head-on collision with Queen Mary or torpedoed in World War I? Torpedoed in World War I may have been possible, but a head-on collision with Queen Mary, I have no idea why someone would assume that that would happen. Ron Bukaki says she has 2 lifeboats left. She has 2 lifeboats on the ship, 1 on the dock, and 5 more in storage. Fallon is asking about raising the Wilhelm Gustloff shipwreck. I have no idea. I don't know anything about the Wilhelm Gustloff or if people have been pulling up pieces. I have no idea. Yeah, they did raise the Costa Concordia, but then again, she wasn't fully submerged, and they had to remove her anyway. They couldn't just leave her right there on the beach. I mean, it wasn't technically a beach; it was a rocky outcropping, but nevertheless, it was near the beach. You wouldn't want to mar the beautiful city there with the sight of a ship that wrecked tragically. Mike asks candy. No, this isn't necessarily candy. It is a pastry. It's a pastry, but it's not candy. Spyro says, did you know that the length to beam ratio of an ocean liner actually helps them to stay going in a straight line for a long period of time, but also means that they are harder to turn. Yeah. Length to beam ratio also helps with slicing through the ocean waves. Snowing Aviation Videography says hello. Hello back. All right. Looks like I finally caught up with all the comments, that's for sure. Spyro says, would you come and visit the RMS Queen Mary? Well, like I've been saying, I want to, but I can't promise it. I live 1,000 miles north. It costs hundreds of dollars to go down to Southern California. It's not like I can just drop the money and go. I don't have that kind of money just sitting around, so I can't promise it. Fallon says, Alex, is Queen Mary bigger than... I think he meant to say Costa Concordia. And also, can Queen Mary slice Costa Concordia? Bigger is a really broad term. Ships are measured. When they measure a ship's size, it's not by length or width. When they measure a ship's size, it's always by tonnage, gross tonnage. So, I think Costa Concordia was bigger than Queen Mary by gross tonnage. Could Queen Mary have sliced through it? I don't think so. It was a very large cruise ship. So, I don't know. I don't know. Thank you, Tyler. Right now, I'm cooking pork ribs. I've been slow cooking them for a couple hours now. Well, actually, just 1 hour. Yeah, because they went in at 4:30. No, they didn't. They went in at 3:30. So yeah, 2 hours. Pretty cool. They should be ready. $7:30, I think. Yeah, I love pork ribs. It was a good deal, too. I forgot how much it cost, but it was a really good deal. I was like, I'm going to buy this. Fallon says, have you ever heard of RMS Oceans? Oh, you meant Oceanos. Yes, I've heard of RMS Oceanos. I don't know much about it, but I have heard of it. Snowing Aviation. Yes, I did. I have a photograph of that area. I have a photograph of both the Queen Mary and the Queen Mary 2 together. Yep, Tyler's right. Costa Concordia was a lot bigger than Queen Mary. Yeah, I agree, Spyro. Ocean liners just have a much cleaner, sharper, narrower look that I really like. Cruise ships are very wide and fat and tall. I don't like the way they look. Fallon Wells says, I went back in time until the captain to listen of Titanic to listen. What? Sorry, Fallon, I have no idea what you just said right there. That whole sentence does not make any sense at all. MS says, I'm not sure if you have read my comment about Queen Mary's being scrapped. I feel like I responded to it. Yeah, I read it out loud and I responded to it. You said, Queen Mary's lifeboats, I think, have been scrapped. Part-time explorer mentioned. And then I responded that that not all of them were scrapped. And even then they weren't scrapped, they were thrown away. So there are 2 lifeboats on the Queen Mary. Currently, there is 1 on the dock. Those 3 will stay and they will be refurbished. Then another 5 were selected for being stored on Long Beach property. For further future restoration. The rest, the other remaining, besides those 8, the other remaining were thrown away. They were cut up and thrown away, but not scrapped. Scrapped implies that it was taken to like a smelter to melt them down, but they were not taken to a smelter. They were cut up and thrown away in the garbage, and they were sent on their way to a landfill. So yeah, they were not scrapped. They were thrown away. So but yeah, that was my response to your question or your comment. Let's see. Hmm? Fallon Wells says, Alex, what are the devices they are putting on the Queen Mary's bottom so it does not rust that much? Yes, it's called the Sacrificial Cathodic Anode System. So you can shorten it by SCAS, Sacrificial Cathodic Anode System, and that is a system. It depends on what water something is in. They will change out the plates to being a certain type of metal. On Queen Mary, they are zinc. They are a bunch of zinc plates that are welded to the ship's hull, and they are given a very small electric current. And that electric current draws the ions in the water into the zinc instead of onto the iron hull of the ship, which preserves the iron hull of the Queen Mary. Now, those have been on the Queen Mary since the ship was turned into a hotel. I would say the safest bet was 1970 was when those zinc plates were installed. They have been changed out over the years, which is what you're supposed to do when they eventually wear away. I think they've been changed out twice since the Queen Mary has been in Long Beach. And I do believe that that the current zinc plates that are on the ship are in good condition. They are not in need of being replaced right at this moment. So they have worked very, very, very well on the Queen Mary. And the ship's hull has not been degraded as much as what you might expect without the zinc plates. As well as the fact that the ship was given a really thick coating of... when the ship was last dry docked in 1969/1970, the ship was given a really extra thick coating of the what's it called? Anti-fouling paint. So they put a coat of anti-fouling paint along the whole bottom of the hull, but it was an extra thick coating just to make sure. And so yeah, that combined with the zinc plates have made it so that the ship really, her hull has been preserved very well. Emma asks, why would they do that to the few lifeboats? Remove that. Why would they do that to lifeboats? Because the ones that they chose for cutting up and throwing away were not salvageable. At least according to the city. Those lifeboats were very, very, very degraded. More so than the rest of them. All of them were degraded badly. But the worst ones were the ones that the city chose to cut up and throw away. Many people will argue that all of them could have been saved, and those people are probably right. All of them could have been saved with enough money and enough resources. But the city felt that the other lifeboats that had to be cut up just had to be because, you know, they felt that they just couldn't save them. But yeah. Fallon Wells says, why did Queen Mary's funnels change colors? You have to be more specific as to when, because the Queen Mary's funnels did change colors a lot throughout her history. So you have to be more specific about when. Planet Mirror says, any train videos in the works? Loved learning about the Montparnasse wreck. Yeah, actually, I am currently starting to put together the ideas for the next train video. I want to see if I can do maybe a video about logging railroads in general, because I still have a lot to learn when it comes to logging railroads and the individual histories of all of them. It is a lot of work, and as well as the fact that I do not... It's hard to find, like... Okay, like, here's an example. I wanted to do one on the Yosemite logging railroad, but I could not find enough photographs of it. Without images, you can't make a video, because you need a lot of images to make a video. So I figure if I don't have enough images to talk about a very particular railroad, maybe I'll just kind of make some generalized videos about those things. So I am kind of putting together the ideas for a video about logging railroads next. Yeah, we'll see. I do plan to expand the railroad videos a bit more and make more railroad videos. Right now, the channel views have just plummeted really badly. So right now I need to bring them up with content that most of the people want to see at the moment. So for right now, there might be some more ocean liner videos coming out. And then once I've stabilized the viewership a bit more, brought up the views to an area that I need it to be, then I'll start working on the train videos, because those ones will be less popular, because I have less train fans on my channel than I do have ocean liner fans. So yeah. And then if I have time, I'm going to try to work more on the model railroad, get more stuff done, and video that for you guys to see. Because, as you can see, the whole thing looks like a mess. The building supplies are just all over. I want to clean it up and make it look nicer. I want to eventually landscape it and paint it, so that way when you guys see it, it's not just all white, you know? So those are the next steps, but the question is, to do it when I have time. I don't know when I'll have time, but I'm trying to make time for it. See you later, Sylvia. MS says, USS Plainview Part-Time Explorer did a video yesterday. Never heard of it before. Interesting. Jimmy Land says, hey Alex, was there any train rides on Disneyland? Yeah, I mean, Disneyland has the Disneyland Railroad, which is their most popular attraction. They have the Disneyland Railroad. They also have the Casey Jr. Circus train. At one point, they had the Viewliner, which was a futuristic railroad. They have the monorails, which count as an aerial railway. Yeah, they had the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, which was a ride that was based on a railroad. So, yeah, yeah, they had a lot of train rides. Spyro says, interestingly, don't modern cruise ships look narrow as all get out compared to cargo ships? I don't think so. Interesting fun fact, Snowing Aviation. No, I didn't know that. Spyro, I guess your question is really confusing to me because I don't understand what it means. You said, interestingly, don't modern cruise ships look narrow as all get out compared to cargo ships, Alex? I don't understand what that means. What is all get out? I don't know what that means. And then, don't modern cruise ships look narrow? I don't think they look narrow. I think they look really wide and fat. I mean, if you look at photographs of them, they are wide and fat. They have a larger width to length ratio than an ocean liner does. And that's why I don't like cruise ships. And then you ask me, why don't you think so, Alex? Modern cargo ships are fat as all get out. Again, I don't know what all get out means, but why are modern cargo ships... Why don't you think so, Alex? Modern cargo ships are fat, I guess. They are, but, you know, they're not... They don't have the same ratio as a cruise ship, because cargo ships still have to cross the ocean, even in bad weather, so they have a narrower width to length ratio. That's why. But yeah, I am confused by your questions because the words don't make sense. Jimmy Lance says, hey Alex, if you had $1 million, what would you do? If I had $1 million, it wouldn't be very interesting. I would make sure that I am, you know, I have a place to live, my family is fine. I would make sure that my health care is being covered, and that, you know, that I have food on the table and everything like that. Like, I would make sure my finances are in order. That's what I would do with $1 million. And, you know, yeah. So, I don't, yeah. Spyro. Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before. I don't really know what it means. Spyro says, if you look at most cargo ships that are like 1,500 feet long, they're almost 250 feet wide. The longest cruise ship to ever have been built is 1,300 feet long, and it's just under 190 feet in width. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's really just, you know, a matter of opinion is what you're asking, so... I mean, opinions vary by person to person. Some people think that cargo ships look fatter than cruise ships, and some people like me think cruise ships look fatter than cargo ships. I mean, I guess that's just a matter of opinion then. Justin says, do you think you may be able to have a guest on these tea videos and or have guest historian live with you? By the way, I love the videos on different Queen Mary rooms. Thank you. I would love to have a guest on these tea times. I would love to have another historian, but I don't live anywhere near my friends. My friends all live in Southern California. I have one friend that lives in Idaho, another friend that lives in South Oregon, but neither of them are close enough to have tea time with me. But I wish that they were. I would have them on here, you know. I think twice I've had my friend Chris on an episode of Tea Times. So he did one in March and then another one in June. So so he's been on here twice, but yeah, he can't come up here all the time. So I'm not sure he'd want to be on those live streams all the time anyway, but yeah, I would love to have other people on the live streams, but none of my friends live near me, so Jimmy Lance says, what's your favorite ocean liner? Not from Cunard, not from any shipping company, but from White Star Line. What's my favorite White Star Line ocean liner? The Oceanic, 1899. Yeah. Jimmy Lance says, Alex, what's the biggest and smallest train you know? What's the biggest and smallest ocean liner you know? When you mean train, I think you mean locomotive, because a train is like a whole bunch of cars all connected to one link, which is a train. But when it comes to locomotives, the biggest one I know of that has existed is the Union Pacific Big Boy, which is very huge. If you haven't ever heard of it, I would look it up. Union Pacific Big Boy is the largest steam locomotive ever put into service. The smallest utility steam locomotive ever put into service would have been along the lines of a plantation locomotive. I don't know a specific one that is the smallest, but among the smallest are ones such as, the Chloe, which is a 3-foot narrow gauge plantation locomotive. Used to be owned by Ward Kimball. And that's a pretty small one. So yeah, I guess there you go. You know, the Chloe versus the Big Boy. So, and then when it comes to ocean liners, the smallest ocean liner, I guess maybe it would be the SS. What was it called? Well, there was one that came before Cunard's first official ocean liner, which was the RMS Britannia. There was one that came before it. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but that one would have been smaller than RMS Britannia. And that one would have been the smallest ocean liner, maybe. But I mean, then again, that's a steam ocean liner. So maybe if you chose an ocean liner that was a sailing ship, it gets even smaller. I don't know. That's a really complex question. But then when it comes to, I guess, the largest ocean liner, of course, everybody knows the largest ocean liner to have ever sailed the seas is the RMS Queen Mary 2, which is currently still serving its duty doing transatlantic crossings. It is the largest ocean liner ever built. So, yeah, that part was easy. Spar says, hey Alex, do you think RMS Queen Mary 2 looks more proportionate and aesthetically pleasing to the eye to look at than modern cruise ships? Oh yeah. I think the Queen Mary 2 looks a lot more pleasing to the eye. Now, it's funny because some people look at Queen Mary 2 and they look at it and they're like, oh, that looks like a cruise ship. And it does. From a distance, it looks like a cruise ship. But if you know what ocean liners are, you can tell all the differences that make it look like an ocean liner versus a cruise ship. But to the untrained eye, people just look at it and they're like, yeah, that just looks like a normal cruise ship. It doesn't look like an ocean liner. But yeah, so what was the question again? But I do think it is more pleasing to the eye than a cruise ship, just because of all the reasons why it is an ocean liner. It looks a little bit different, and it looks better because it's different for those reasons. So that's that's my opinion on it. Spyro asked something about SS Nomadic or SS Traffic, but those were not ocean liners. Those were tenders. So those were boats designed to ferry people in a harbor. They weren't designed to cross oceans like an ocean liner. They probably would have been destroyed if they crossed an ocean during a major storm because they are so tiny. So yeah, those are not ocean liners. Tyler Frederick says unicorn. Random word. Spyro says, isn't the SS Nomadic or SS Traffic the smallest ocean liners ever to be built that were powered by steam? They're not ocean liners, though. They're ferries. They're ferries designed to work in a harbor, but they're not designed for open ocean. So yeah, they're not designed for like literally going out into the middle of the Atlantic. They can't, and they don't hold enough fuel to do so either. So they are definitely not ocean liners by any means. You know, honestly, one of the smallest ocean liners that comes to mind would be the SS Princess Louise. It's not the smallest, but it's one of the smallest ocean liners to exist, is SS Princess Louise. And it was a true to honest ocean liner. So yeah, but Nomadic and Traffic were not ocean liners. They were tenders. They were designed for ferrying people a very, very short distance from the dock to the ship. That's all it really was designed for. Let's see this. Snowing Aviation says, do you think QE2 looks better than Queen Mary 2? On the outside, yes, but on the inside, definitely not. I think the Queen Mary 2 looks a lot better on the inside than the QE2 looks. Because I like the Art Deco look. I'm not into the space age look. But yes, from the outside, QE2 looks better than Queen Mary 2. If the QE2 had Art Deco interiors like the Queen Mary 2, then I would think it's like the perfect looking modern ocean liner. Emma, yes, I have heard of that train. NCC, interesting. Tyler Frederick, well, Unicorn was not the ship I was referring to. It was like SS William something. SS something William or whatever. It had William in the name. And it was literally the first steam ocean liner that Samuel Cunard ever purchased. He purchased it so he could have it sail across the ocean to test the idea that they could build one that could do it. And it was successful, so he built the RMS Britannia, and that became the official first ship of the Cunard line. But yeah, it's William something. Granny Gaming says the train looks different. No, it's the same train. I have two trains. I have a freight train and a passenger train. That's all I have on this layout. And so that's all you will see is the freight train and the passenger train. Ah, yeah, there we go. Tyler says Royal William. Yes, the SS Royal William would be among the smallest ocean liners ever built. I don't know that it would be the smallest, but it would be among the smallest for sure. And that was, again, that was purchased by Samuel Cunard to test it on open ocean to see if it would work. And then when they were happy with the tests, they went and built the RMS RMS Britannia. Sorry, suddenly escaped my memory. Spyro, yeah, SS Nomadic did serve the RMS Queen Mary. I don't think it served the Queen Elizabeth. Because if it did, that would have had to be after the war, after World War II. And by then, I think Nomadic was considered just a very, very old little boat. So, or it's technically a ship. But yeah, it would be considered a very old ship. I don't think they would have used it for that purpose then. Because as far as I know, in the 50s, it was sold. sold to somebody, if I remember correctly. There's a possibility in the late 40s it did serve the Queen Elizabeth. There's a big possibility there, but I don't know if it did. NCC says, Princess Louise, well, I guess it depends if you think there's a difference between coastal liners and ocean liners. I mean, there's a difference in purpose, but Princess Louise, if they needed her to cross an ocean, and they made sure she was loaded up with enough fuel to do so, she could, you know. So I think structurally there isn't much of a difference between a coastal liner and an ocean liner, except the fact that coastal liners were generally smaller because they had less passengers. But yeah. Let's see. Granny Gaming says, what tea is it this time? Earl Grey. TSS Calshot was a tug for the Queen Mary. That I knew. Hello, Brian. Good to see you, too. Mike sends... I thought that was a rubber duck, but it's a snake. I was like, oh, it's a weird green rubber duck, but it's a snake. All right. It is time. It has been 2 hours, and so I will have to say goodbye. I have to clean up. I am slow cooking pork ribs currently, so I need to get ready to start cooking the rest of the dinner. And my dad will be over later to have dinner with me. Yeah, so I have a lot of stuff to do right now. Either tomorrow or Tuesday, I will release Chapter 5 of the RMS Queen Mary, Queen of the Queens by William J. Duncan, because I'm converting that to audiobook since most people can't, get a hold of that book. So Chapter 5 will be released either tomorrow or Tuesday. And then there might be another video on Tuesday. I have an idea of what it'll be. Let's just see if I can make it fast enough. And then Friday will, of course, have a video. Probably like a top 5 of something. I have an idea. Again, I have an idea of what I'm going to do. I just haven't done it yet. So that's the schedule for main videos for this week. As for the next tea time, it will be on Wednesday at 4 p.m. All tea times, I try to make them Wednesdays, Sundays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So, yeah, so that is basically the schedule for this week. And I think that is it. Again, the channel will continue growing with more videos, not just about ocean liners, but about trains and about historic places, and occasionally, randomly, depending on what the story is, possibly even a person of historic interest. But yeah, that is the what the channel is all about, because I know there's a lot of people here that are new who are just watching this. So, okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you all for joining me, you guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.